The times have changed, so has the delivery of news. We believe local news needs to be easily accessible. Hey, Owensboro, get with the times. Subscribe today at owensborotimes.com.
Hi, I'm Matt Castle with Castle Steel.
And I'm Daniel Dick with Daniel Dick State Farm.
And we're proud to partner with Owensboro Times.
It's never been more important than now to meet the candidates.
It's a vital part of our republic democracy for candidates to come forward and run for public office. I'm grateful for the individuals willing to run on the issues that are important to them and this community. Thank you for your willingness to serve the people of Owensboro.
Lastly, we want to thank you for joining us.
The town hall begins now.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Owensboro Times Primary Election Town Hall. I'm Jake Boswell. I'll be moderating this event for the next half hour or so. First, we want to explain the format to you at home, and to all of you who've taken the time to be here in person, we want to explain the format to you too. Candidates drew for their spot on stage upon arrival today, and they were given topics ahead of time. But as far as specific questions they'll be hearing, they're going to be hearing them for the first time, the same as you at home. They've not seen these questions. Candidates will have 60 seconds to answer each of the questions we give them. The order in which candidates respond will be reversed from each question. So we'll start at this end of the table, and then the next question will start at that end. Each candidate also is going to be given 60 seconds to deliver a closing statement as we round out this forum. The community's input was factored in heavily into the formation of these questions to make sure that we address the most important topics to you, but guests will not be allowed to ask questions from the audience during this forum. Guests here in attendance, we're happy to have you. Please hold your applause until the forum for this race ends. We're well into the afternoon here now, the 6th of 9 races and segments we'll be having today. We're joined by 5 different candidates for Davis County Central Commissioner. I want to make one note before we introduce the candidates to you here, before we get started, that Andy Gamblin was not able to attend today. So he is on the ballot, but not here for the forum today. We'll start with the candidates who were able to make it. Larry Conder, Dianne Mackey, Darrin Autry, Jason Jackson, and Michael King. Our first question after our draw goes to you, Mr. Conder. What are the biggest barriers for local entrepreneurs, both to open a small business and to thrive? How would you address those issues?
Been able to really be firsthand with the small business side, especially with the developments that my wife and I did throughout Owensboro and Davis County. And some of the bigger problems, and you're going to hear it again and again and again, is about rules and regulations that go on. So one of the issues that we should do to address that is back in 2009, 2010, I was involved, basically a town hall of small business owners and developers, and some of the big ones also, of how and what rules and regulations we need to change. Because OMPC is basically the police officer to enforce the rules. Who makes the rules? 20% of those rules are made up by local officials. So you have that opportunity to actually be able to do that. And that is one of the biggest things that I would commit to do. Let's have a rules and regulations town hall. Everybody come in, let's talk, and then, we're going to gripe. That's fine. But at the end of the day, let's make a difference so everybody can have a chance to succeed.
Ms. Mackey, same question.
Well, my husband and I have been in business, had 3 small businesses for 44 years. So now I know exactly how hard it is to run a business, do the paperwork, do the taxes, the payroll, taxes or there's just occupational taxes, net profit taxes, sales and use taxes. I could just go on and on. But, I think that you spend so much time doing that or hiring someone to do it. It costs small businesses. Now, that's not totally the local fault. That's the state fault, too. So I think that, in my mind, has been our hardest, hurdle. And also, when we started 44 years ago, we didn't have planning and zoning. So we did not have near the problem of setting up a business or putting gas tanks in or anything like that. Now, 10 years later, we did it again, and it was still not that bad. I don't have as much trouble with planning and zoning as the other people here. But I mean, I'm willing to work really hard to get, businesses, help small businesses get what they need to go.
Mr. Autry, I'll ask you the same question. What are the biggest barriers for local entrepreneurs both to open a small business and to thrive? How would you address those issues?
I think one of our biggest issues is planning and zoning. We have I started a small business about 4 years, and we're starting to grow. We do not have a central office, so I get a lot of grief with planning and zoning and the city over our vehicles being out on the street and the taxes that we're paying, and then it seems like I get hammered all the time because I have a vehicle sitting here, and we ended up buying a lot just to park our vehicles, which is costing us money because now we're having to pay insurance on the buildings that we had to purchase, and it's a lot of expense. It truly is, and it's hard on a small business like that we own and run. And I think planning and zoning and the county and the city needs to work together with the small business people to help them strive, and it's not there.
Mr. Jackson, what about you? What are the biggest barriers you think for local entrepreneurs both to open their small business and to thrive?
I think planning and zoning is also one of the issues. On certain things, they don't make it very user-friendly or easy for a small business owner to open their brick and mortar shop. They've got a lot of steps that you have to do. They don't catch everything on the first inspection sometimes, so that holds up a business from opening. To keep a business to thriving, I think we need to be more friendly to our small business. If that's a tax break for just, a year or a 2-year tax break, depending on what it is, I think that's something we should offer to help bring in more small business because, we live on small business. Just look at 2nd Street downtown here. I know the brewery down there, they missed their opening date before for silly issues with planning and zoning. I'll say that. Just a security light. I mean, it's silly things like that. So I think we just need to be a little bit more friendly.
What about you, Mr. King? What are the biggest barriers for local entrepreneurs and small businesses to thrive, you feel, in Davis County?
Unfortunately, it is planning and zoning. That is the entity that any person looking to open a business, expand a business, will have to work with. And too many times those businesses are told, either from a planning or code, that they don't want their business, or that they're not there to make that job easy, or we're going to shut you down. There's too many times that happens. So whether those regulations need to be changed, made simpler, more efficient, but also it has to have the attitude of we are here to help you. No matter if the problem can be fixed or not, it should start with we're here to help you. We're here to help you work through this problem. Yes, it may not be the answer you like, but we're going to help you find a solution instead of simply being told we're not going to help, we can't help, we don't want you. So planning and zoning by far is the largest barrier we have to businesses in Davis County.
We've made our way down the table with the first question, and Mr. King, you had to wait the first time. You'll be the first to go this time. Why do you think Davis County has missed out on some of the major economic development projects that have been announced in recent months? And what steps would you take to ensure the county is in consideration for future projects?
One of the issues, and this is always comes up, and nothing that can be fixed immediately, but it's something we try to with interstate spurs, is interstate access and location to larger markets. Elizabethtown has just landed their battery facility. It's within less than an hour of Louisville, on an interstate within an hour and 15 minutes of Lexington. Bowling Green has had some major announcements as well, less than an hour away from Nashville. That helps with airports, to transportation for the businesses, also creates larger labor pools. At the same time, we can do a better job of having site-ready projects ready. Also work with the community colleges to build our workforce to have a better option to show that we can generate the labor pool they have to help those projects succeed here as well.
Mr. Jackson, same question to you.
I believe we've missed out on a lot of these bigger businesses because we're not willing to bring them in. I mean, really. I don't think we're willing to give the tax breaks that they might need in order to bring them in. We've got the workforce. We've got smart people here. We can get people from anywhere. Roadways, we have the roads we have. I mean, it's not going to be an excuse to use a interstate system coming here. We can have any kind of facility we want. We can do any kind of manufacturing we want. We've got a riverfront, you know. So I think it's the people in charge that won't play ball, that won't help these businesses, that we need to help.
Mr. Autry, I'll restate the question for you. Why do you think Davis County's missed out on some of the major economic development projects that have been announced in recent months, and what steps would you do to ensure that we're in consideration in the future?
I hate to use taxpayers' money to bring businesses in here, but I think we need to give these businesses some kind of stiff to get them to come here. I think that we're struggling in the workforce. Our youth are going to college and not coming back. There's nothing in Owensboro here for them. They move on. I think if a big company comes in here, I don't know if we have the workforce to feed them, to keep them growing. And I think we have to find ways to keep our youth here, the people who go to college, come back and get them to come back. And that way the companies can have the workforce for these people here. And that's what I think.
Ms. Mackey, what about you? What steps would you take to ensure the community is in consideration for future projects, and maybe why do you think we've missed out on some in the past?
Well, one of the reasons is the labor force, and I've heard that from a lot of different people, from the present fiscal court. And when I was on the school board, we started a program where, as a high school senior, you could get an associate's degree for the last 2 years of high school, the same time you got your diploma from that high school, if you qualified and you were accepted into the program. And I think that has saved parents a lot of money, plus it's kept some of those students here. I think that was a great inventive idea, and I was instrumental in that program. Also, I think we need to work with the community colleges to develop more trades and vocational skills. When I was younger, my dad was a shop teacher, and we had a lot of vocation. He taught plumbing, and he taught electricity, he taught shop, woodworking, and they've kind of done away with that, encouraged everybody to go away to college, and that's caused a lot of our children to leave. I would like work with all the educational institutions, which I've always done, so I would continue to do that.
Mr. Conder, I'll ask the same question to you. What steps would you do to ensure that the county is in consideration for major projects in the future, and why do you think maybe we've missed out on some in recent months?
So let's take a little bit of a different twist on this. You know, let's say we do all of the different things that my fellow candidates are talking about: workforce development, workers, regulations, interstate highway, floodplain, site plan development, all of those things. Let's say we do all of them, okay? And we're ready to go. We're ready to let it just happen. Here's what will occur, because it's very apparent that it continues to happen, that whenever Owensboro and Davis County attempts to do these type of things, Frankfort just simply goes, you make it so easy to say no for any projects that may come about, because look at what's happened around us. 5 projects all around Owensboro and Davis County, and we were told no. Why? Because many times we don't have a united front from whether it be local leadership or local businesses that will go to Frankfort and or Washington, D.C., and be on the same page of what we want to do and how we want to do it. That's the difference we have to do, where Frankfort will not say no to us any longer.
Move on to our third question now. Mr. Conder, you waited a while. You get to go first this time. There's been a push for a fairness ordinance in recent years. Why do you think people feel it's necessary, and do you agree with making that move?
The question, of course, is, you call it a fairness ordinance. I really don't believe it's a non-discrimination ordinance. I believe that was even in the title of the last ordinance that was voted down. Well, let's have a little bit of history here. June of last year, the United States Supreme Court reaffirmed that you cannot discriminate based on the 1964 Civil Rights Act according to fairness or discrimination. You cannot do that in regards to employment. So it's already on the books. You can't do it, period. What's left over is basically housing and maybe public accommodations. But I can tell you right now, It's going to happen because the Supreme Court of the United States made it the law of the land that you cannot discriminate already. And it happened with Supreme Court Justice Neil Gorsuch, a Republican nominee, to be able to reaffirm that, appointed by former President Trump. So, will it happen even further? Yes, it will happen. And we should enforce those laws because that's our constitutional obligation as publicly elected officials to uphold the law. Thank you.
Ms. Mackey, what about you?
Yes,
Like we
I
said,
mean,
why do you feel it's
I
necessary?
agree with him. I think that it is illegal, and it has been substantiated that in the Supreme Court, so there's really no question about it. I think for government to get involved in social issues, I believe in limited government. I think that's kind of out of our purview to be involved in how somebody feels and gender and all that. I just think that's not our place.
What about you, Mr. Autry?
I would say that I don't think we need one. We've never had a trouble here in Davis County before. I would vote no for it. I don't see why the government needs to get involved in that. I think we have enough laws on the books that would cover all this, and that we do not need to write new law.
Mr. Jackson?
I agree. We don't need it. It's something that's been made up to open a door for lawsuits. It's unnecessary here. Once you give government power, they're just going to take a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. And that's what we see all the time. It's going to start with this, then they're going to take something else from us and something else from us. So I'm absolutely would vote no.
And Mr. King, to you.
I'm not in favor as well. As previously stated, the Supreme Court has made a ruling on employment. The current administration has an executive order in place on housing. So at this time, both issues are covered by state and federal organizations that were set up to police housing and employment issues. If you have a complaint or concern, you can contact those organizations and they will investigate and pursue those matters. So we as a local community have a choice. We could pass one, create new costs for administration, investigation, enforcement, or we can allow the federal agencies and the state agencies that were created for those to continue to do their jobs.
Our next question, also a local social issue. A judge recently determined that the Confederate monument here in Davis County is the property of the fiscal court. And what specific steps would you take to carry out the decision previously made to remove it from the courthouse lawn? Where do you think it should be placed? Mr. King.
Well, based on the question, the court has made the decision that fiscal court made the decision to remove it from the property. The local judge has made the decision that it is property of the fiscal court. So based on the question, the next step would be finding a location for it. Commission was set up to look for a location. Both locations were not acceptable, museums, I believe, on both of them. So other locations would need to be considered, whether they considered to move it to storage or to look at a battlefield memorial, grave or a cemetery, something like that, that could still show the intent of the original donors of it, but not be on public property and as voted on by the prior fiscal court.
Mr. Jackson.
I think the court made a huge mistake. We shouldn't be canceling our history. That statue's been there for years. It should remain there. And I would like to do anything I could to overturn it and keep it there. If that's not possible, then we need to find the best place to display it in front of everybody, because that's our history, people. We can't keep canceling ourselves, just because it hurts somebody's feelings. We got to keep feelings out of this. This is history. You got to learn from your history. Use it as a reminder. So if it can't remain, then hopefully a business on Frederick Street or somewhere, right out in the middle of the public would take it and display it for everybody to see.
Mr. Autry, same question to you.
Well, I've gave this a lot of thought, and I believe that that the statue should be removed. I think that we should have gave the statue to the Confederate daughters. They would take the statue and do with what they need to do. That way it can be seen still by the public. I do not want to do away with our history. I mean, I know what Confederate statute represents. I hate it. I had no part of that. But I think we should have gave it to the Confederate daughters and not fought them and let them display it where they want, as long as it's not on public property or county property.
Ms. Mackey, what about you?
Those who fail to learn from history are destined to repeat it. That was stated by Winston Churchill in 1948. I think our students, we need to know history. And so many of our students aren't learning history. Neither are they learning math and reading. So I think that it's ridiculous to spend money to do something that maybe you could. Someone did suggest change the plaque on the front of it. I mean, that would be okay with me, but I think it's ridiculous to spend money wastefully like that.
And Mr. Conder.
Could you repeat the question, please?
Absolutely. Judge recently determined that the Confederate monument is property of the fiscal court. What specific steps would you take to carry out the decision previously made to remove it from the courthouse lawn? And where do you think it should be placed?
So the assumption of the question is that the current fiscal court will not act on what they voted to do. That's basically what that means. So let's say, for example, they don't. They're like, okay, we're not going to really do this. And come January 1 of next year, it's still there. So what would I do? Would I move it or not? Here's what I think would be a good solution here. And it might be a little controversial, but that's okay. We should engage some artists to be able to look at the monument itself and figure out a way that it actually becomes a testimony to all of our heroes. Not just one era, not just one place, but all of them in some form or fashion. And yes, we can go through all the times and periods of our history and memorialize even possibly our first responders. Could that be done? Maybe, maybe not. But we should try to see if that's possible. Thank you.
Next question. Based on your conversations with constituents, what do you think the public's top priorities are? Whether it be economical, social?
Sure.
How would you address the issues that you're hearing?
The very first one that everybody wants to make sure, we can talk about jobs, we can talk about economic development, we can talk about just a lot of different things. But first and foremost is making sure that our families and children are safe. You can have everything else that you want to talk about. It doesn't matter. But if we're not, as we are so proud to do, a good, great place to live, work, and play, if we don't make that safe for our children and grandchildren and continue to stay on top of that, then we have really failed in our responsibilities. Not only as elected officials, but as parents, grandparents, we have really failed in that. So one of the biggest ways I think that we can even address that is being able to go into our middle schools, because there's a switch that gets flipped in the middle schools where our students, our young people, lose respect for authority in whatever way that's been happening. So we need to start there, because if we start there, change how that has been done over time, we don't have to address it when they're 22, 23 years old. So that in itself is one of the biggest things I hear. I want our home safe to do everything else we want to do.
Ms. Mackey, the same question to you based on the conversations you've been having with constituents and the public. What do you think the public's top priorities are, and what would you do to address them?
Well, safety, I agree with that too. And I think we have a wonderful community. I went to the eye doctor a week ago, and they said he graduated from college, he and his wife. His wife is a neurologist. And they looked at many, many communities in 6 different areas, and they decided to come here. I mean, that is quite a testament to me. So I think we just keep doing what we're doing and attracting, and also attracting jobs, of course. We want to do that and make it easier for small businesses to come and stay and flourish. I mean, we were lucky too, I guess, because we've been successful in our small business, and I want other people to have that opportunity as well.
Mr. Autry, what have people been saying to you, and how would you plan to address it if you were elected?
I think a lot of our biggest issue is the safety. Our crime rate has gotten a little high. I was going to say out of hand, but it's growing, and the drugs here in Davis County are it's getting out of hand. I think we need to help the police department, the sheriff's department, whatever we got to do to see what we can do about getting the drugs off the streets. Owensboro is full of homeless. They're everywhere, and we've been broken into several times because of homeless, and they're not really doing anything wrong. They're just looking for a warm place to go. I think we need to figure out how to get them off the streets and get them into homes. And one of our biggest things, I think, is, again, I'm a firm believer, our youth is leaving and not coming back. They're going away for college, and they're going to better things. Owensboro just does not offer a lot for people. There's no jobs. I'm struggling to get people to come to work for me. Nobody's qualified, and we're trying to train them. So as soon as we get them trained, they go to somewhere else. They leave. And I think that's one of our issues, our youth and the security of the city.
Mr. Jackson, what about you? What are you hearing from people, and what do you plan to do about it?
Well, there's several things that people's been talking about. Taxes going up is a big one. So not raising the taxes. Jobs are another one. You talk about going to college and stuff. Well, that's just one of the biggest scams in America, really. How many of our kids are going to college, dropping out, and having huge debt? We bring in jobs where you don't have to have a bachelor's degree or associate's degree. Bring in some good paying jobs for people. Our police and sheriff's department, crime rates up. I think we need to look into them. Maybe they're not doing their job. They want to sit up there and say more money, more money, more money, but I don't believe they're doing their jobs. Our school systems, there's a lot of parents concerned about that with the critical race theory and everything. Even the way they teach the kids now. That's why I pulled mine out of public school. They took God out of it. And we need God in our lives. If we have God in our lives, we have a better community in a whole. So I think we all need to get together and, do some neighborhood watches if you're concerned about the crime, and report more things.
Mr. King, same question to you as far as what are you hearing from constituents, and what do you plan to do to address it?
Many issues have been brought up. Public safety is one, social issues, but the main issue I hear, this is on a weekly basis, is obstructions to economic development. I began working with OZ Tyler, it's Green River Distillery now, at the end of 2018 to develop warehouses for them. We went through issues with planning and zoning, weren't able to make it work, and the project moved to Ohio County, and will next year have about $1 million in tax revenue that could have been brought in this area, not because we didn't have the ability, but because we chose not to act. You have to, when a business wants to locate in your community, you need to find a way to make it work, whether it's a small business, large business, whatever that is, because those businesses want to be here. Let's find ways to keep them. It shouldn't be if something doesn't work, well, let's see what Bardstown's doing or another city's doing. Let's use our own head and make a decision and come up ways to make it work, and instead of just saying no to them.
We've got another question to get in. Thank you guys for being on time for the most part. Mr. King, the question will go to you. If elected, what are your funding and spending priorities?
Well, fortunately, the county budget is in very good condition, relatively low debt. We're able to pay off the convention center in shorter time than expected. For me, the top priority would be with public safety, making sure that the sheriff's department has the funds that they need to, one, retain deputies, two, increase training, and add new deputies as needed to help with public safety. The second part would be to look at what can we do to bring other people to this area. If there's training items through partnering with OCTC, anything like that can be done to help boost job training that would help with employers in the area. And then another would be an incentive program for small businesses, at least for growth in occupational tax. Not giving away tax money, but hey, you've created a new occupational tax. Let's let you keep a little bit of that for a short period of time to help you expand your business.
Mr. Jackson, what about you? What are your funding and spending priorities if you were elected?
Well, I'd have to go through the funding and look at it real hard, the budget. But if we do have extra money, definitely not raise taxes. Maybe give a tax break back. We need to create something for families to do. Maybe, I just don't see why Davis County can't build like an amphitheater and be run by the county. do something to bring more revenue in for the county. County ran, county owned. So now we've got a revenue coming in, so we don't have to rely as highly on taxes coming out. And that gives people things to do. We can bring in venues. Bowling Green, Beaver Dam's doing it, and it's awesome down there. I go every year. I just think we need to do more things like that.
Mr. Autry, what about you?
I think that I would like to see more sheriff deputies on the road, and I feel like if we had a community that was safe, we would draw people here, because at one time Davis County was the place to move to. We were the safest around. Evansville had high crime rate, but Davis County was way down. And I feel like if we have the extra funds in the budget and things like that, without ever raising taxes, I see no reason why we can't hire more sheriff deputies and put them out on the road and get our crime rate back down. Crime is a big issue with me. I don't get it. I don't know why Davis County has slipped the way we have slipped.
Ms. Mackey, same question to you. Funding and spending priorities if you were elected.
I would emphasize spending on law enforcement also. I have a former student, or several former students that are now law officials, and I'm real proud of them. And I have several in the audience, a lawyer that I had in school, so I'm proud of all these students that have gone to school in Davis County and are still here. We talk about all those that have left, but we've got a veterinarian here that I had, and many teachers have stayed here. So not everybody's left. I also would make sure the fire department is funded. My house burned in 1994, and I really appreciate the fire department. Also, the occupational tax, if we had extra, I would do away with that, especially in the county, if that is at all possible, because the new middle school will be spending $10 million over a long period of time just in occupational taxes, because the teachers do not pay them in the other schools, so the school board will have to pick up that cost.
And Mr. Conder, to you, what would your funding and spending priorities be if you were elected?
Currently, you have, of course, the ARPA funds, which is about $20 million that will be, vast majority of it is going to be appropriated, but it still needs to be looked over. You have to make sure that $10 million is about to be spent on internet access out in the county, which that really hasn't been talked about, is done correctly and done right to make sure that everybody that doesn't have internet's got it. That's $10 million. $2 million going to RWRA. That also serves not only your city, but county residents in that fashion. And by the way, everybody be ready for what RWRA is about to do next year with their potential rates. So hang on. The next one would be the $1 million for Habitat. Great program. But yet we still have to make sure we look at those funds. And the one that's hanging out there is our jail. Not sexy to talk about. I get it. But yet it has a little over $3 million subsidy budgeted for them. In reality, Jailer Magalier will make it less than that. Probably a little over $1 million. So if we can save that kind of money, now we can have discussions about what to do with $2 million. That's when it gets real to talk about an amphitheater or other things that people would like to do. Thank you.
That wraps up our questions portion of our forum. We're going to move on now to our closing statements. Each of you will have 60 seconds to give your closing statement as we wrap things up. And Mr. Conder, you get to go first.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I love this back and forth like that. In this race itself, when you talk about all the questions that have been answered, the biggest thing that needs to jump out to everyone is, have you done it? Can you do it? Will you make the time to do so? Answer those questions of everybody, not only on this format, but all the other positions that are up for election, because it makes a difference. Can you look at the budget? Do you know what you're looking for? Do you have relationships with individuals to make things happen, whether it be from the private sector or the public sector? Are you willing to take the time out of your day and your full-time job to do a part-time job for the people that you're about to be elected for? That's huge and dramatic that you're willing to do that. Because if you're not, you might want to do something else. My commitment to you is the same I did for the city commission for 4 years. I've calculated at one time I was paid $2.76 per hour when I was a city commissioner. That's because I'm willing to serve, and serve in a fashion that it is servant leadership, to do that for everyone. Thank you.
Ms. Mackey, your closing statement.
I raised my family here, taught school here, and I've been one of the longest living Republicans still here. And my husband and I have run a small business for 44 years. Being the owner of these businesses has taught me how to manage money, how to meet a payroll, how to pay taxes, payroll taxes, and every kind of tax you could manage, plus fees and regulations. This gives me a unique experience on how these ordinances affect people. I wish more people were interested in the school board, because the school tax is 70% of your property tax. And actually, people think that the tax is the county tax, but the majority of it is the school tax. Yesterday, I was dealing with planning and zoning also. I do have issues with planning and zoning, but it ended up being a state issue. But I was able to go up down to the planning and zoning and talk to Matt Warren. He was very helpful. I would appreciate your vote, and my time's running out. I have a hard time with it. I was able to, I was able, you can go on and on when you talk to students, but you can't do that when you're talking to adults. As you decide to vote for county commissioner, vote the last one on the central ballot, who is not the least, last but not least. And go to my website if you want to know more about me, mackeyforkentucky.com.
Thank you, Ms. Mackey. Mr. Autry, your closing statement.
Once again, I would like to reiterate, I definitely do not want to raise taxes. I again think that we need to get the safety, get more cops out on the street. I'm a family man. I have a wife and 5 children. I have a special needs daughter that she was harassed not too long ago, and it just, we are, as a family man, I'm a firm believer that we need to protect our children, check our family, and make sure they're okay. Once again, I do not plan on ever raising taxes. I don't see Davis County has a very good budget. We are doing well in our budget. I see no reason why we should raise taxes.
Thank you, Mr. Autry. Mr. Jackson, your closing statement.
Well, if you want somebody that's going to go into the physical court and play hardball, that'd be me. I'm not going to raise taxes. I won't vote for it. I won't vote for half the crap that you see on TV, of them. And yay, yay, that's all they say. They say yay to everything. So I'll go in and play hardball. If you want a smooth talker, you know what I'm saying. You can vote for whoever you want. But I'm telling you right now, I will work hard for Davis County. And I might not have the experience in this job, but I do have experience in life and people. So please vote for me.
And Mr. King, your 60-second closing statement.
Purpose of local government is, first of all, to provide public safety through fire department and sheriff's department. Next would be essential services through roads, utilities, parks, things like that. And third would be to promote economic growth. Because if we have economic growth, we can bring in new jobs, and we can increase the tax base and increase revenue without raising taxes. Without raising taxes. As part of the cornerstone of our economic growth is small and existing businesses. If we can help them out, the better our economy would be. And I believe my experience as a developer, as a contractor, as a professional engineer, and as a business leader makes me the best person to tackle those issues, as well as bring in the next generation of leadership for Davis County. I'm Michael Norman King, and I'm asking for your vote in early voting and on May 17th. Thank you.
That wraps up our sixth session of the day. Thanks to everybody who took the time to watch at home. Thanks to each of the candidates for joining us and spending time with us on stage, letting us hear from you. We also want to thank the Bluegrass Hall of Fame and Museum for letting us use their facility this evening and hosting this town hall here. We also want to thank our presenting sponsors, Castlin Steel and Daniel Dick, State Farm Insurance Agent, our supporting sponsor, Mudd's Furniture. We'd like to leave you with one final message. That is, after you hear what you've heard today, please go out and vote. Early voting has already started. You can do so once again tomorrow. Primary election day is going to be on Tuesday. Our next race will begin at 6:30. That'll be the West County Commission race. In the meantime, ladies and gentlemen, your candidates for Central County Commission.